Okay, hello, my friends. It is September 17th, 2024, and here are five big stories for today. So, it only took Facebook 8 years after certainly understanding that it was merely a Russian tool of information warfare to finally remove RT. So, Facebook has removed RT. Now, this is a double edged sword because while you don't want Russian propaganda just out there, you also don't want it to be chased underground because when it was removed from all these other sources, it went underground and then it's harder to stamp out. I'm a free speech guy. I think maybe you should allow it and put a red box around it so it's flashing and everybody knows this is Russian state media or something along those lines. But you can't just do this and think that it will go away because it will not go away. And here's the proof. Let's look a little bit more at this. Meta has banned Russia Today and other Russian state-controlled media outlets on its platform 936 days after Russia launched a full-scale genocidal war on Ukraine. 936 days too late if you ask me. Now, I understand what he's saying, but I'm also saying it's going to shift and mutate and go underground and become insidious if it's not there out where it is. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I know that just doing this doesn't end it. The ban will be put into effect in the coming days and covers the activities of Russia Today Media Group and other Russian state media outlets. As a reminder, on September 4th, the United States imposed sanctions against propagandist Simonyan and Russia Today Media Group and its subsidiaries. And then he also referenced another former one of his posts, this here, which I'm going to show you. After Russia attacked Ukraine in February 2022, the EU and the US stopped broadcasting Russia Today TV channel. Apple and Google banned RT, Sputnik apps, YouTube, TikTok, Meta, Facebook, Instagram blocked their accounts. Nevertheless, the propaganda budgets of Russia Today increased by a combined 3.9 billion rubles from 2021 to 2024, doing the very thing that they were just indicted for doing. Because if they can't be published this way, they went underground. And now it's harder to figure out who's actually RT and who's a voice that is just echoing them, or are they on the take, or what's going on. The Kremlin relied on guerrilla methods to reach foreign audiences. Networks of Telegram channels, pro-Russian bloggers and websites, and collaborations with any anti-system community from ultra-leftists to QAnon followers. As a result, despite the blocking, the pro-Kremlin audience has doubled in the past 2 years of war. This is how the Kremlin broadcasts its position to multiple countries with little or no censorship. So it's kind of a victory, but it's almost like the victory that the Ukrainians had in Kherson. They chased the Russian army out, but they didn't kill the Russian army. The Russian army got out totally unscathed or almost completely unscathed and then became the Surovikin line. And so this is what's happening here in the information war. Remember this meme at Elon Musk posted? Apparently, it was created by someone named Sophia who worked for a Russian government agency sanctioned by the US and aimed at spreading propaganda in the West. And I took this into a Google Translate to see it for myself. Leaked internal files, this is from the Kyiv Post now, leaked internal files from the sanctioned Russian government social design agency show that in the first 4 months of 2024, their influence operations generated 33.9 million comments, produced 39,899 content units on social media, including 4,641 videos and 2,516 memes and graphics. Like, they're just going to keep coming, just in a different form. It's not like banning RT is any significant victory. And I know people are celebrating this, but it's just becoming more of this rather than that. One such meme shared by Elon Musk to his nearly 200 million followers was, remember this Zelensky, he's angry when it's been 5 minutes and you haven't asked for $1 billion in aid, right? Okay, so that's what's happening with social media. Again, I'm not sure how to cure it, but don't run the victory lap just yet. Okay, second big story. Ukraine gets about $100 billion a year from the West, of which $50 billion goes to arms. Ukraine adds as much as $100 billion in a year in its own military. Russia spends $160 billion a year on its military. The West should double its military assistance, but preferably outspend Russia, and they could. Like, think about this. It's simply ridiculous, as Timothy Ash, simply ridiculous. How is it that the West, with a combined 60 trillion economy, is unable to counter Russia with a $2 trillion economy? Like, just think about this. The economy of Russia, and look at this. Germany has doubled roughly doubled the economy that Russia has. And Russia's economy is about the size of the state of Texas. It's about the economy of Texas. The West has many times, 30 times the size, not quite 30, 25 to 30 times the size of the Russian economy, and yet they're not doing anything. There's a lack of political will here. Now, this is the British intelligence update. I'm just trying to show you what the economic situation has been like for Russia and what it's caused Russia to have to do and where they actually are. This has led the Russian Ministry of Defense to increase sign-on bonuses in August 2024, an increasingly expensive recruitment strategy for Russia. Estimates suggest military personnel payments amounted to around 8% of federal spending in the year to June 2024. Payment increases will nonetheless probably bolster recruitment levels for the remainder of the year. Okay, just personnel payments, just paying the salaries of troops costs 8% of Russian federal budget. Like, that's absolutely nuts. So you could push in the same way that at the near the end of the Cold War, the military spending that the United States had pushed the Russians to try to match it and helped break the Soviet Union. They can keep pushing on it, but there's not the political will. Meanwhile, Sergei Shoigu arrived in Iran on an unannounced visit. Well, he was just in North Korea. What do you think he's doing in Iran and North Korea? Do you think he really likes these guys and he misses them, wants to come back to visit and see them again? Or do you think they're acquiring more missiles and bombs and other drones and tech like that? Okay, this week, the IMF, this one made me pretty mad. The IMF starts its mission to Russia. They do it quietly because they know it's a scandal. The International Monetary Fund has decided to normalize its relations with Russia without providing any reasons. So they're doing it quietly. You notice how everything tends to be announced. We're providing $100 million here. We're providing $1 billion too here. We're providing, right? This wasn't announced, or it was quietly announced. Western nations previously pressured the IMF to drop the idea of sending missions in 2022 and 2023. Now, the International Monetary Fund is re-engaging with Moscow. This decision is a big diplomatic win for the Kremlin. The IMF claims to be outside politics, but its actions show a blatant disregard for international law and human rights. By the way, who's this that's talking? He's the president of the Kyiv School of Economics, former Minister of Economy from Ukraine. So he knows what he's talking about here. And he also adds this: Russia's aggression is reshaping Europe's economy and destabilizing global markets. By choosing to look away from this grim reality, the fund is effectively enabling Russia's actions. And I think that's absolutely fair. Okay. Let's talk about Ryan Wesley Ruth, who was detained on suspicion of attempting to assassinate former President Donald Trump. And there's even a hashtag now, Trump assassination attempt 2. So there shouldn't be a hashtag for assassination attempt of anybody, either party at any time, one, let alone two. But let's look at this. So Ukraine is going to be painted in a negative light as a consequence of this. Russia will try to blame Ukraine for attacking Trump. I think that will happen. You'll see more of this. But this guy says, I started warning foreign soldiers in Ukraine about Ryan Ruth in fall of 2023. Here's a screenshot of what I later posted to Twitter. And he said this: a warning about Ryan Ruth. He is and is not and has never been associated with the International Legion or the Ukrainian army at all. Ruth has posted soldiers' phone numbers on websites without giving permission, given out recruiters' phone numbers to people without permission, and talked about illegally smuggling in Afghanistan citizens to Ukraine to fight in the Legion. Avoid any contact with Ruth as he misrepresents what he can legally do. He is not a Legion recruiter. Attached are screenshots of a New York Times article that quoted him and screenshots between myself and him as evidence of my statements. Okay, so did he have sympathy for Ukraine? Sure. Was he part of the system? Not at all. Okay. Jake Bro was on Piers Morgan, and he was explaining these kinds of things. And if you haven't seen it, he handled himself very well. Good on Jake for that, stepping up and explaining the background, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. In fact, speaking of misinformation, here is Tim Pool suggesting that the man who tried to assassinate Donald Trump should be investigated for being a Ukrainian agent. Right. Okay. So that's just going to spread. And it's just without any actual facts. He's just kind of saying, hey, he was in Ukraine. He wanted to support the cause. Maybe that's what's causing it. There's more to the story. Now, I usually end with something like Darth Putin, but I'm not ending here with Darth Putin because I want to talk about something, a counterbalance, and then help us focus on how we should be thinking about this. Trump, they are the enemies of the people. Trump, they want to make USA a communist dictatorship. Trump, lock them up. Trump, they're trying to implement Sharia law. Trump, they want to have death penalties. Trump, they are the enemy within. Also, Trump, the Democrats use dangerous rhetoric. Okay, Darth Putin, the parody site, very often drives at real truth by saying, things kind of tongue in cheek. This is a good point, right? Trump shouldn't say these kind of things. Neither should the Democrats. Here's 2.5 minutes of Democrats explicitly calling for use of political violence, right? Calling for Trump to be, he's the enemy of all society. He is a threat to democracy. We need to stop him at all costs, that sort of thing. Now, I'm not going to talk to Pelosi. I am going to talk to the Trump side because I'm a Republican. Guys, you should stop it. You should tone down the rhetoric. Now, if you're on the left side of the political spectrum, you should talk to the left side of the spectrum and say, guys, stop it. Tone down the rhetoric. It feels a lot better to call the other side hypocrites, but really what we need to do is get our sides to tone down the rhetoric, whichever side you're on. I agree with Michael McFaul. He's on the left side of the political spectrum, but he said, I'm glad former President Trump is safe. And that's where we should all be. We should want to beat our political opponents at the ballot box, not with the bullet. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.